Welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Experience podcast, inside the business, buzz, and brilliance of Black entrepreneurs. Here is your host, Dr. Frances Richards.
What happens in Vegas goes all over the world on Black Entrepreneur Experience, episode number 471. Thank you for joining us as we elevate the Black Entrepreneur Experience by interviewing CEOs, thought leaders, innovative thinkers, and Black entrepreneurs across the globe. I'm your host, Dr. Frances Richards. Imagine your mission is to make a difference in the lives of young people and adults through philanthropic acts of kindness. Our next guest is a certified philanthropic coach and CEO of the BK Damon Foundation. Welcome, Barron Damon.
Thank you, Dr. Richards, for having me. I'm so excited about being here with you today. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. I've given our audience such a brief bio. Why don't you fill in the gaps and share with our audience what you'd like them to know about you and your business?
Sure. Thank you. I always kind of start off with my story being a second semester freshman at the University of South Carolina when I was mugged. And as a result of that, it really changed my life forever. Really, my life ended up going down a downward spiral, I would say, because the impact that it had on me emotionally. I received a scholarship to the University, an academic scholarship to the University of South Carolina, and everything fell apart. I couldn't pull it back together. I lost my scholarship. I got kicked out of school, and my life just began to change. Eventually, I got myself back together, but it was as a result of me taking an internship at the Columbia Urban League. And the Urban League was an organization that had several programs. And the program that I was a part of, interning at, was called Stop the Violence. And that Stop the Violence program, the irony of that, right? I was assaulted by these young men who were literally going around college campuses and just having random acts of violence. I happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong, I say now, at the right time. And as a result of that internship, I remember leaving there, Dr. Richards, thinking, this is not what I want to do in life. I said, you're working with kids who, from disadvantaged homes and places. I said, I just want to be a CEO of a company. I want to have a nice life, drive a nice car, have a big house, and live my life. But there was another calling for me. And that was the beginning of me kind of transitioning into the nonprofit space. And so as a result of that, I started working at an organization called Big Brothers, Big Sisters, which is a national organization and international. And it really got me in the direction of the nonprofit space as well as philanthropy.
So let's back up a little bit. When you started on this path of nonprofit, did you go back to school and get your degree, or did you decide not to pursue education?
No, I went back to school. After 4 years, I would apply every year. They would not allow me to get back in for, academic reasons. And I was able to continue that journey and later on get my bachelor's degree, but also a master's degree in business.
Excellent. Congratulations. And thank you for that. And talk about your foundation. What exactly does your foundation do? What is the mission?
Our mission is to help young people and adults with random acts of kindness. There's so many things that's going on in the world today that we call that's negativity all around us. What we do is provide these kind of random acts of kindness in 3 different bucket areas. One of those buckets is called the Go Giver Project or youth development. And we're launching that this fall. If you're familiar with the book, The Go Giver, it's actually modeled from the Go Giver book itself. And we're really excited about that. We spent some time with Bob Berg, the author, just a couple of weeks ago, and they're going to help us support it. The second aspect of the foundation is scholarships. We know that young people struggle, especially people of color, struggle securing the finances they need for college. And so we provide scholarships for them. But we also know young people don't always want to go to college. There's other avenues. Business, for example. I'm a third generational business owner. And so I've seen business up close and personal. It has always been something really important to me. And we know there's young people out there that's so smart and creative, and we just want to give them that kind of extra step with business grants or micro lending that we do. And the last part is missions work. And we strongly believe in missions. That's kind of the cornerstone of the foundation. And we support missions work all across the world, actually.
And what was that aha moment when you knew that you should do your own foundation, your own nonprofit?
I would say about 5 or 6 years ago, and I've been going through my own philanthropic journey. I am a philanthropic coach, and so I help people align their giving, their wealth with their deepest values. And through my own process, I realized that we were giving money away, and we've always been, not always, but at a certain stage in life, we started giving money away, but it wasn't very strategic. And we started with a donor advised fund probably about 5 or 6 years ago. And that donor advised fund allowed us to start the process of being strategic. So when you put money into a donor advised fund, it's irrevocable. Once you put it in, you can't get it out, and you make the grants based on, who you want to support. And after we were doing that, we realized that we couldn't maximize the effort of others. And that's why we started the BK Damon Foundation, because we realized that other people wanted to support and give to the work that we were doing. And that's why we started the foundation.
What is something that we should know about starting a nonprofit that we don't know?
I was listening to one of your guests the other day, and it was great. I think I'm going to connect with her. She said some wonderful stuff about nonprofits. I actually tried to discourage people from starting nonprofits. And I say that because there's a lot of work that goes into it. And to me, it's almost like churches. Everybody just has a slightly different message, and they want to do something different. And you have 10 churches on one, within a block of each other. I would tell people you have to treat having a nonprofit like it's a real business and not like it's a hobby. And that's the one thing I would say.
Who is your ideal client?
My ideal client, I started out when I started this journey, and I'll give you a little backstory to this. We were about 2 years ago, we were in Portugal, we were traveling as a family, and a financial advisor, a wealth advisor, reached out to me, and he just found me randomly online. And he says, I would love for you to be on my podcast to talk about how do we incorporate family into philanthropic giving. And of course, I wasn't necessarily focusing on at that time. I've been a coach for about 6 years, certified coach, but life coaching or executive coaching, business coaching. But that philanthropic side really intrigued me. So after I met with him, we had a great podcast. He said, Barron, I want to introduce you to my boss who's actually leaving. And he said he's retiring and he has some money. So he set me up with him. I met with him and he says, well, Barron, Michael said you can help me. I have about $4 million to $7 million that I'm getting from stock, and I want to give it away. Can you help me? And that started me thinking there's people out here who have some money that may not know what to do with it. And so when I started thinking about baby boomers was a target audience for me, but I work with wealth advisors, accountants, and attorneys. That's where a lot of my clients come from.
I want you to have a monologue. I want you to name this person, living or not, and they have inspired you so much. Who is that person, and what are you saying to that person?
I would say my mother. She passed away some years ago, and I remember we started my real first business called Right Time Kids, and she was such an instrumental part of that developmental process. And she was my number one cheerleader. And so I would say to her, Mom, thank you for being there, supporting me every step of the way during the good times and the bad times. I told you part of my story about getting kicked out of school. I didn't even tell my parents, Dr. Richard, for a while because I was embarrassed, ashamed. But when she found out about it, she said, baby, it's going to be okay. And so I would just say, thank you, Mom, for helping me grow and develop into the man that I am today and providing me an opportunity to succeed. My mom suffered from depression for many years, and then it was a very dark time for her for several years of her life. And I believe that God healed her and she became really free, and it was amazing how she lived the latter part of her years almost like a new person. And for me, being able to see her, matter of fact, when she passed, I wrote a poem and it said, Living Free. And as a result of that, I created this tagline that's trademarked today, living in freedom every day. And so I'll say, Mom, thank you for inspiring that in me now that's being passed down to other ones. That's the legacy she left for me.
And say her name.
Georgia Lee Damon.
And thank you for that and our sincere sympathy for your loss.
Thank you.
Speaking of legacy, Barron, when it's all said and done, how do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered as the person that helped other person with the dash. And that dash is from the time they were born to the time they died. Right? And there's so much in between that people have not discovered their purpose, their reason for being here. I want to be a part of that growth and development and helping them as a philanthropic coach. We say, live their legacy now. And we teach people how to do that. So that's what I want my legacy to be, for me to be able to help others live their legacy and make sure that dash is something that you're proud of.
Speaking of purpose and why, tell us your purpose and your why.
Yeah, my purpose is definitely, and I think about it in terms of coaching, to help people grow and develop and fulfill their purpose in life. That's something that's really important for me. Someone said to me the other day, they said, Barry, you're so passionate about helping other people grow. And that's something that's really important to me. And my why, I just wrote an article. Matter of fact, I'm in a collaborative book called Transforming Your Lives. And I said, I developed my philanthropic why after I got my black eye. And so my philanthropic why came from that mugging. When that guy hit me in the eye, it really changed my life forever. And it showed me that you have to care about others. I was pretty self-centered, pretty selfish, as a young person. As I described to you, I just wanted to kind of live the good life. I didn't think about nonprofits and charity and philanthropy. Just wanted to be successful, what I thought success to be. But as a result of that, I developed my why, and that's giving back to others.
Who are your top 2 influencers or mentors, and what lessons did they teach you?
That's a good question. I would say, my father, for one. We didn't have the closest relationship growing up. My father was a pastor, and so I grew up in a Christian home. But in retrospect, I started understanding how important his role was in my life in terms of how disciplined he was, how consistent he was. If he said something, it was going to happen, it was going to get done. And just the way he operated day after day, month after month, year after year, decade after decade. And that really influenced me in how I am today. I want to be very consistent. I want to be disciplined to be able to do the things I want to accomplish. And I would say another person, the book, The Go-Giver, and I mentioned that earlier because of a project that we're working on. And I just recently met Bob Berg, but I like the philosophy of the book, how we can, and it's a sales book, but how we can have the right approach to making money, so we don't have to be cutthroat and not provide people good service, all about making money. So that has really influenced me over the past several years as well.
I want you to share, what is your zone of genius, Barron?
My zone of genius, I would say coaching. I love it I think it was Robert Kiyosaki that talks about everyone has a genius. And when I'm standing in front of people or training people or even on a one-to-one basis, and I'm helping them discover their God-given talents and purpose in life, that's my zone. I can do that all day, every day. And now you add the philanthropic side to it, helping people discover now what their philanthropic why is and why how important it is to give back to others.
And how did you discover the industry of coaching?
I always knew when I was growing up, I thought about becoming a psychologist. I do have a degree in industrial psychology, so I was fascinated with the psychology side. It really is like business psychology. But I realized I didn't want to listen to people's problems all day, every day at some point. So I said, what's another option? Because I was always the person that people came to. I'm a good listener. I ask really good questions. And as a coach, those are some very important things. You have to be able to listen to people and you have to ask good questions. And so as a result of that, I realized that coaching was something that I could be internally really good at. I remember going through my cohort when my first training, and my coach she said, Barron, I don't know if this is a gift or innate, but there's something you have that I've been coaching people for 20 years and I don't see they have. And I just thought that was just interesting, but it just confirmed to me that zone of genius to be able to help and support people is what I've been gifted to do.
So you've been coaching for a minute. Tell us the story, the backstory of a client, and only give pertinent details. Don't give any information that you cannot share about a success story.
Yeah, there's a few of them, and I'll share this particular story because they said just the opposite to me. They said, and I'll tell you the story. So there was a young lady. She was a friend of mine. I've known her for many years, and we would stay in contact with each other from time to time. So I happened to run into her here in the city I lived in, and we had a great conversation. And she was talking about there were some changes in her life that she wanted to make. And I said, well, I'm a coach. Maybe I can help you. And she was like, I don't know about that, Barron. Because a lot of times people don't want to work with you if you're your friend, right? They don't want to be as transparent as sometimes you need them to be. And I told her, I said, no pressure. Go home and think about it. Pray about it. Let's see what happens. So she comes back to me and she says, I'm ready. I'm ready to do it. And she wanted to specifically focus on finances, right? And she was in a place in life where she said, seemed like if I take a step and go two steps backwards. And she could never get out of this kind of rut and move forward. And so we started working with her. She was spending probably $450 a month and just eating out, very, very undisciplined in a lot of areas around finances. But she had enough money to pay for everything, but she wasn't saving money and all of that. And so we guided her through that process. But as a result, the coaching, unfortunately, what came out of it was she had been sexually abused by a family member. And as a result of that, the coaching that we were having with her, it came out. And that was the thing that was really holding her back from moving forward. She never had any counseling or therapy from it as a young person, and it just stayed with her. And anytime she thought she would progress, those thoughts of not being worthy, those limited beliefs about herself will pull her back down. And once we exposed that, we actually stopped working with her. She ended up paying a lot of debt off. Her credit got great, but I referred her over to counseling because she needed it. She came back about a year later. I mean, she's doing fantastic now, but just it was it was great. And then we realized she needed some more support, and we pulled other people in to help her as well.
That's a great story. Thank you for sharing. We want to talk about an attitude of gratitude.
Mhm.
And I want you to have a thank fest. I want you to thank people and situations that has impacted and propelled your life. Have at it.
I just recently wrote my first book called Monday Morning Manna. And this book, I thank some people. And so I will go down the line. I want to thank my mother and my father because they were so instrumental in any success that I had. And they were just there to support me through the thick and the thin and the difficulties of life. And so I always want to start off by thanking them. My godparents, my godmother passed away maybe a year and a half ago, but I spent as much time with them. My godfather was a principal, assistant principal for many years. He was an educator. And my parents, I'm a first generational college student. So a lot that I learned from him being in that kind of academic environment, he showed me that and they showed me that. So I thank them. I've had mothers along the way. Rosa Cusack, thank you. She's my kind of spiritual godmother, and her husband, Mr. Ken. I met her when I was at Big Brothers Big Sisters in Columbia, South Carolina, and she was just a godsend for me as a young professional trying to find my way through managing all these people. And she was there to say, baby, you got this. You got this. And I appreciate that. I've had people like Justine Carter, who I used to go, and she used to feed me all the time. I used to go to her house, and it was just a safe place for me to go. Or Jessime Mack, thank you for being there and showing me how a person with so many challenges and struggles can overcome and allow love to shine through, even in the midst of hurt and pain. I will also thank my sisters. I have three sisters that I love and have been there for me, especially as an adult. And also my in-laws, and can't forget them, Betty and Truman Brightman, who have been such great examples for me in my life for the past 26 years. And my wife and I have been married. I also want to thank my children, who are just, everybody's children are great. Mine is special too. And I just love them. Mariah and Joshua, thank you for allowing me to lead in your home. And lastly, but not least, my wife. I thank her. She is an amazing person, an amazing support, and she's always there for me. And without her, I wouldn't be able to accomplish anything really that I do. So I'm very thankful and thankful to God and the relationship that I have with him.
Amen. Monday morning manna. Tell us about that.
Yeah, Monday Morning Manor was a project, and it wasn't designed to be a book. I started out writing these messages to my family on Mondays, right? And it was just text messages because during the pandemic, Dr. Richard, things got a little challenging for a lot of people. My daughter was in college, and I felt that kind of separation anxiety from her. And as a result of that, I started writing these messages to connect my son, my wife, and my daughter, all us together, have this kind of centralized theme for our family. And I was writing it every week, and it was great. I didn't know if they was really getting the messages that I was that I was writing because there was no feedback sometimes, but I later found out that it really impacted their life. So in November, I was like, maybe I should turn this into a book. And I reached out to a friend who's an editor, and she got everything together. And matter of fact, it'll be released next month. And I've been sending out copies. But this was a legacy project. And we talk about living your legacy now. So what I did was probably a little unique. The day before Christmas, Christmas Eve, I gave them this box, the black box, and it had legacy on it, a legacy box. And I had them open it up at the same time. And they opened it up and they saw their names on it, as well as mine. And my daughter said to me, Dad, why would you put our names on it? You wrote this. I said, no, this was a family project, even though I wrote it. And so how I think about it is, I told them if Amazon closes down today, you have something that you can share with your grandchildren, your children, and our grandchildren in years after. And that's why this book is so important to me, because it provides an opportunity for me and my wife and family to leave a legacy to those that's coming behind us.
That's beautiful. And so are you doing pre-orders if someone's interested in getting the book? You said it's coming out in March.
Right. You can actually go online right now and we've had sales and all the proceeds go directly to our foundation, which is nice. We've had people just donating money, sending it to other people. I wrote personal notes in about 20, probably about 30 books, and I sent them out to people just as gratitude. You just had me do the thanks. Those people that I mentioned, they're in the book, but I also sent them a book of gratitude and thanking them for helping me. But yeah, you can go order it now, Monday Morning Man. You can even Google it, go to Amazon, and you can find it. And you're supporting the foundation as well when the book is purchased.
Very good. Barron, what is the biggest takeaway that you want our audience to leave with today?
I want them to, from a philanthropic coach, I want people to start where they are. I think that's so important. I do a lot of podcasts and I talk specifically about philanthropy and how you can get started because most people say, oh, I'll do that when I'm in a different stage of life, when I have more money. One of the scholarships that we gave away, our very first scholarship went to a young man called, his name was Victor. And Victor was an immigrant, and he had probably a 4.9 of a 5-point GPA. And so one day he was a part of our leadership development program. And I was talking with him, and he just seemed like he was upset. And I said, "Why are you upset?" He said, "Barron, I've done all of this work, and now I can't even go to college. I don't have the money. I can't even apply for federal aid." It's like, wow. So we ended up giving this young man a scholarship for $500. I have pictures where he just broke down crying. I mean, just like the ugly cry, as we say, right? He was really crying. His parents couldn't even speak English. And he ended up getting an $80,000 scholarship to Tufts University. And that showed me it wasn't just the amount of money, it was the hope that we provided them. So I would encourage people to start where you are. If it's $100, if it's $500, if it's $10,000, we help people create their mission and vision and strategic plan around their giving. That's why people hire me to do that and help them. We do all the research for the nonprofits. So just start where you are. If that's a little bit of money, we started our fund with $5,000 and we probably supported 50 organizations with that $5,000. And so it doesn't take a lot, but it does take some intentionality. And that's what I would love for people listening to take away.
Let's talk about self-care. What does self-care look like for you, Barron?
We have multiple businesses, and so when people wonder what self-care look like, self-care looks like going to the gym 3 days a week. Self-care looks like meditating once or twice a day in prayer and traveling. I just got back. My wife and I celebrated our 26th wedding anniversary in the mountains. We play hard. I say we work hard, but we also play hard. So meaning there's moments where I would just sit in my office and not do anything, just relax or go outside or go on a walk. So all of those things I kind of incorporate into my day. And I don't know, to be honest with you, how I could do all the things that I do without that self-care is so important. So between meditating and praying and going to the gym, working out and going for walks, that's what I do.
What breaks your heart?
What breaks my heart is the division in this country. I was born in New York and I lived in New York for 10 years in Brooklyn. And I had this ideal, some people say it's not the melting pot, but I had people all around me of different nationality, ethnic groups. I moved to the South where it was very different. We had a black high school, a white high school. That broke my heart, and knowing there's so much division in this world. I launched my podcast. I have a podcast called Giving While Black. And part of what we're trying to do is help uplift, amplify, and celebrate people of color, Black people who have given back to their communities. And I want to show how important it is for people to come together and to work together and to understand everybody's communities and the contributions that we each have in their communities. I'm on an advisory board for all Indian group. The vision is something that really bothers me, and trying to do my part to merge and bring people together.
And for those that's interested in listening to your podcasts, what is the best way for them to listen? Which platforms are you on?
I am on Apple and Spotify, and on YouTube now. And you can just put Giving While Black, and you'll definitely find it.
And what made you start the podcast?
Because of the negativity around While Black. I was sitting around my office one day and I thought, because we're inundated with so many messages of negativity around Black people, whether driving while Black, walking while Black, shopping while Black. And I think for me, when there was a situation in New York with the guy was looking at birds, he was bird watching, and there was an incident there. And that was when I thought about, I need to do something. How can we turn something so negative, while Black, into something positive? And one of the best ways I can think of was to go back to our history of giving. And Giving While Black became something that I said, let's focus on something good, something positive, and celebrate while Black.
What problem exists in the world today that you'd like to solve?
A problem, and I think it goes back for me, is division. I don't know how to solve that with our political landscape that we're currently in. I don't have the answer to how to solve it, but I would love to solve that. And just doing my part in terms, I'm a Rotarian, and Rotarians are all around the world. We had a discussion this week about DEI and how important it is to bring people into our circles. And part of my solution is doing my small part of bringing people together from different ethnic groups, nationalities, religions, and see if we can find some common ground around how we can make a difference and an impact in the world.
What do you need right now that you don't have to move the needle forward?
More influence, more influence. Someone asked me years ago, would you rather be rich, or would you rather have influence? I said influence. Because with influence, we can help kind of change some narratives that we experience. So I would say more influence. And that's part of why we started the podcast as well. It's why we started the foundation. I mean, the different things as a philanthropic coach, to have an opportunity to interact with people who have some means. And so all of these things that I'm doing now, hopefully building that influence so we can help make a greater difference.
Let's talk. You talked about operating multiple businesses. How did you raise the capital to start your business?
Yeah, our first business that we had was called Right Time Kids. And I went to family members. I went to family members. I didn't want to do traditional loans, but my family members, my uncles, my parents, I had a mentor at the time, a very wealthy guy. He supported it. So between those three main people and our own money, we were able to start this business. And I've always kind of used that model if I needed to. But now, we have some other resources that we can leverage. But that was how I kind of started. You reach out to family and friends and mentors and sell the vision and what you're trying to accomplish, and hope people will buy into that.
And when you talk about starting multiple businesses, let's talk about, we know in business there's risk.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the worst moment in business. And what was your takeaway?
Yeah, the worst moment in business, and I would use the Right Time Kids example, we didn't have enough capital, right? We spent $150,000 that, we got from other people, family members and mentors, but we didn't have any money to run the business. And, it became an award-winning business. But I remember starting with about $150 in our bank account, and we had 6 or 7 employees. That was the worst thing because it was very stressful. When you have a payroll, you're starting a new business. It was a new concept too. It was something that was people wasn't doing, and we were kind of innovative in that particular space. But that was very challenging.
And what happened to the business?
The business ended up, we had to close it down after a couple of years. And the reason why is because my business was growing. Like I said, we were an award-winning business. We started partnerships with Verizon Wireless because the model of the business, it was you can it's a drop-off center. So you can drop your kids off for an hour, or you can drop them off for 5 hours or 10 hours. It's depending on the situation. Now, some of the traditional daycares didn't like the model. And matter of fact, they basically ran us out of business. I remember talking to somebody at I think it was Department of Human Services, and she said, "You and your wife seem like nice people." She said, "I probably shouldn't even be telling you this." She said, "But they came after you all. They were intimidated by this new business model because they were traditional daycare." And then we started having people who wanted us to have a traditional daycare too. And so that's what happened. They brought fire marshals in. The police, they took our business from 12 to 14-hour days that we operate and said we can only operate for 4 hours. It was a disaster. The fire marshal came and gave us a $30,000 bill. It was things that you would see on TV actually happened to us in real life.
Barron, if you conducted this interview, what is the one question you would have asked yourself? I want you to ask the question and answer it.
The question I would ask, do you plan on writing additional books besides the one that you have? And my answer would be yes. It's not something that I necessarily plan, but I realize how empowering writing is in sharing your story and your message. And so I have this collaborative work that's coming out in May, but I have a new book coming out next year as well. And so that's what I would ask myself. And the reason I'm writing now is because of the impact that it can make. So many people have reached out to me about Monday Morning Manna and how it's helped them in their life. And what we want to do is have greater impact, greater influence on helping people make a difference. And if I can use a book to do that and spread that message even more, that's what we're going to do.
Did you self-publish?
I did self-publish. Yeah.
Would you recommend that?
I would recommend self-publishing because it's a little bit different. I was a part of a leadership program some years ago, and we invited somebody to come in and speak, and she had several self-published books, and they were good books. And one of the professors said, "Can we use somebody that's not self-published?" And it was almost like a disdain. And that was probably 10, 12 years ago. Fast forward now, Amazon, KDP, is the 5th largest book selling place in the world. It's just viewed differently, and the process is a lot easier, and the technology and how the books look. You can look at my book, and matter of fact, I have a copy here, and you have to look and say, "Oh, that's a pretty good looking book." So I think self-publishing is great. If you can get a traditional kind of publisher, that would be fantastic too, but it's a little more challenging.
We've come to the part of our interview. It's called Rapid Round of Fun. I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I'd like you to give me very quick answers. If you desire not to answer something, say pass. Are you ready for Rapid Round of Fun?
Yes, let's go for it, Dr. Richards.
Your first job.
Quincy's Steakhouse.
Your favorite color.
Blue.
Your ideal car.
I would say a BMW.
The last movie you saw.
Probably the second Black Panther in the movies, probably. Yeah, I think that was the last one I saw in the movies.
You relax doing what?
Meditating.
Your favorite singer or rapper?
Lecrae.
Your favorite dance song?
Bless Me by Kurt Franklin.
Your favorite comfort food?
Shrimp and grits. Give me some shrimp and grits.
What food you eat every week, no matter what?
Bananas. I eat bananas every day almost.
Work out or hit the couch?
Definitely work out.
Barron, Damon, thank you so much for joining us on Black Entrepreneur Experience Podcast. Before we let you go, share with our audience the best way for them to connect with you, to do business with you. Leave all your social media handles.
Absolutely. BarronDamon.com is a great way to get in contact with me. Go on LinkedIn and Barron Damon, Barron J. Damon. That's my writer's page.com. Those are great ways to get in contact with me. Email Barron@thebusinessoflifecc.com is another great way to connect with me. And I'm on all the socials as well.
Thank you, Barron. That's a wrap.
Thank you for listening and subscribing to Black Entrepreneur Experience. We would love for you to leave a review and rating on iTunes and share with your friends. For show notes and more episodes, go to www.beepodcast.com. Join us next Wednesday, and remember, green is the new black. So keep your bank accounts and your business in the black.